Recession, 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 recession. That is all people are talking about. Are we in a recession or not? And what does it mean for homeowners and foreclosure? Hey, what's up, Foreclosure Fix family, and welcome to another episode of the Foreclosure Fix podcast, the best place online, on YouTube, on Spotify, on whatever platform you're listening to me to if you are facing foreclosure. Our goal here is simple. We want to help 1 million homeowners successfully navigate foreclosure, and I'm excited that you're tuning in. I'm your host, DJ Elojo, and if you have not picked up a copy of our latest book called The Foreclosure Fix, go ahead and do so now. You can find it in the bio, and definitely it is a great book for those who may be navigating that journey. You don't want to do it alone, and we're here to help you. That being said, I am talking all things recession. Yes, recession, 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 recession. I'm talking about it today. I know that it is top of mind for so many people, and I really want to dive into some of the things that I've been thinking about and some of the things that I've been hearing as it pertains to what's going on in the economy and what we need to be doing as homeowners who may be facing foreclosure or who may be facing challenging financial times, and as realtors, investors, and just people, just to really understand what things you can do in this environment as you hear all the noise coming from the news media, coming from the politics that are going on right now, and all these different things. So we're diving into recession, what it means for you as a homeowner facing foreclosure, and the best way to navigate that process in this season. So the first thing I'm going to say is, this is not going to be statistics heavy, right? I don't want you to think you got to have a PhD in economics to follow along with us. I do want to highlight some of the things that you should know, or I think would be beneficial for you to know about recession and about recession indicators, and why some people are talking about, yes, we are probably going to be in a recession in the next 12 months. But I don't want you to feel like, turn me off now because he's talking about things that may not be interesting to you. I'm going to hit some high level points, and then we're going to dive into the facts that I want you to know that are really, really important. The first thing I'll tell you is that you may have heard terms called like soft landing, or, we are out a bit over our skis, or things like that. And you hear all these colloquialisms and you're like, what does that mean? What does a soft landing mean? In all honesty, I don't really know what a soft landing means when it comes to the economics of things, because there's so many different variables, and the way a recession is defined is pretty much after a recession is already happening. But there are two things that I think are relevant, or just two different topics that I think you should know about, or two different terms, I should say, that you should know about as you are listening to recession debates and what that means. The first, I want to talk about a rule called the SOM rule, right? The SOM rule basically states when the 3-month moving average of the national unemployment rate is half a percentage point or more above the low point over the prior 12 months. We are in the early months of a recession. And this rule is named after its creator, Claudia Sahm, who's a former Fed economist. Now, you may hear people talking about the SOM rule. And basically, that SOM rule is just talking about the unemployment rate. And basically, it's an indicator of we are going into a recession, or we're at the point where we are in the early phases of a recession, because a recession is typically called after it's already happening, right? And then the other one is called the yield curve. And when you think about the yield curve, it's the U.S. Treasury yield curve. And it's been inverted since mid-2002. And it's basically another recession indicator that people have used over the years to say, okay, hey, we're headed towards a recession. And when you look at some of the factors facing Americans, U.S. credit card debt is at 1.1 trillion, and the delinquency rate on that debt is at its highest level in over a decade. And then you look at auto delinquencies. Yes, those car loans. It's another red flag that, the strength of the American consumer is starting to weaken. And then the last thing is when you look at the unemployment rate. I think we're at like 4.3%, which is not historically high, but it's really high in the last couple of years, right? I think it's the highest it's been since October 2021. And so when you look at all these things, you have people yelling and screaming, we are in a recession, or we're headed towards a recession. And even when you look at kind of what the New York Fed has said, is that there's still a 55.8% chance that we're going to be in a recession in the next 12 months. And so that big question of, are we in a recession or are we not in a recession is top of mind, but it's also something that's really difficult to answer. And what I always tell people, or what I always go to, is I don't care what the news says. I don't care what anybody says as it pertains to if we're in a recession or not. And the reason I don't care is because it always comes down to facts or feelings. And so my question for you, if you're listening to this podcast, do you feel like we're in a recession? Does your pocketbook feel like we're in a recession? When you go out to buy eggs, when you go out to get gas, when you go out to get groceries, when you go out to buy clothes, when you go try to pay your mortgage, insurance or your property taxes, does it feel like everything is higher? Does it feel like everything is more expensive? And if that's the case, then I don't care what anybody says, because we're in a recession because our finances feel like we're in a recession. And so I'm not going to wait for an economist to tell me I'm in a recession. I can tell you right now that everything is more expensive and inflation is real and my pocketbook is hurting because of it. And so I know without a shadow of a doubt that what I feel is being felt by other people, because I'm having conversations with friends, with family members, with people facing foreclosure, and we all are saying the same thing. So regardless of what the statistics may say, regardless of what this data, big data, small data, aggregated data, I don't care. I know what the data I'm collecting with the people who I'm talking to is saying, and basically is saying the same thing. Things are just very, very expensive right now, and we are feeling it in our pocketbooks. And so as a result, I want to tell you that don't wait for the recession indicators before you start making change, because 12 months from now, somebody's going to come out and say, oh yeah, we were in a recession in, August or September or October of 2024. And it's going to be 2025. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're on the end of this recession. And so I always feel that it is great to listen to the political pundits. It's great to listen to the news reporters. It's great to read the articles with the catchy headlines. But oftentimes when you're listening to people in politics, when you're listening to news reporters, when you're reading articles, when you're clicking through YouTube or social media, people have things called clickbait. People want you to listen to them. There's so many people vying for your attention. I'm one of them right now. And thank you for listening to this great podcast. But at the end of the day, people have so much clickbait out there. And so they're going to tell you what you want to hear, or they're going to have a salacious title or a salacious thing to get you to click on it. Like, oh no, we're not going into a recession. You always have to use your common sense. You always have to say, what do I feel right now in this moment about the environment that I'm going in? And what do I feel that my pocketbook is telling me? And when I say pocketbook, I'm talking about that wallet. I'm talking about that purse. I'm talking about that bank account. I'm talking about, what do I feel? Do I feel economic pressure, or do I feel that there's wind behind me and I'm going to be, accelerating in this environment? And so those are the stats I want to provide with you, right? And my aunt, my family's Nigerian, and my aunt always tells me this. She says, I cut my clothes according to my cloth, right? I cut my clothes according to my cloth. And basically what she's telling me is that she's not looking around to anybody else to dictate how she lives her life. She looks at what she has, what she makes, and the material that she's dealing with, and that's the way she bases her life. And so my advice to you is to take my aunt's advice and cut your clothes according to your cloth. And so in this environment, if you're looking around and saying, man, how are these people still eating out so much? Or how are these people still, driving these fancy cars? Are they not feeling the pressures that I'm feeling? Cut your clothes according to your cloth. And at the end of the day, you will be in a much better spot because you are doing that. And so the other thing I want to talk about is what's the sentiment of people, because I do believe that facts are feelings. And again, the people who I talk to around me, people who I'm talking to who are facing foreclosure, everybody has financial pressures against them. And a firm, which is, I think, a credit card company, and I guess not a credit card company, but they're a lender. I think they do the lending on things like, buy here, pay here type things online and stuff like that. They are saying that although the U.S. isn't in an official recession, a survey they conducted reveals that 3 out of 5 Americans think we are in a recession. And so, again, facts are feelings. And if you feel like we're in a recession or going towards a recession, you need to start making the right actions and taking the right steps to put yourself and your house in the best position possible, right? The next thing I'm going to tell you is that I know many, many qualified people who are underemployed right now or unemployed right now. And what I mean by that, I mean qualified, PhD, MBA, multiple degrees, and they can't find jobs and they have experience. It's not like these are people who are like just got their degrees. These are people who are experienced. They were either laid off or resigned from a position, and they're qualified people, great people. And they have been searching for not just weeks, but months, and maybe one of them I know almost over a year. And so at the end of the day, these people are underemployed, maybe because they're taking jobs just to kind of make ends meet in this environment, or they're unemployed. And these are qualified individuals. And so again, when we talk about recession, for these folks, their recession started a long time ago. The next thing I'll tell you is in the real estate market, as I see it right now, I am seeing longer days on market for houses. I used to sell houses in 30 days or less. And when I say sell them, I mean like they're under contract within 30 days or less. So basically 4 weeks of being on the market, you get a contract for a good price, and it's accepted and it goes through, and in 60 days or so you're closed. Now in the last few months, I'm seeing longer days on market. I was recently looking at some statistics online in some areas we're listing some properties. And guess what? I'm seeing 90, 120 days plus on average for these properties to sell. Now they are selling, but the other thing that I'm noticing is that the listing price versus the selling price ratios are softening. And so before, if somebody lists their property for $200,000, it sells for $200,000, or it sells for $199 with a couple concessions like $5,000 in kind of closing costs or something like that. But now what I'm seeing is that same buyer, that same person is waiting 90, 120 days to sell. And in addition to that, they're not selling for the $200,000 they listed for. They're selling for, maybe 185, 180. And so again, that ratio is softening. And so if you're facing foreclosure, I really want you to know that if you're thinking about putting your property on the market, you don't want to wait. You want to do it as soon as possible, especially as we go into the colder seasons of the year. We know that historically, houses take longer to sell in the colder months. And so you want to be proactive. You can't just assume that you're going to put on the market and that somebody's going to buy it tomorrow. Now, what I will always tell you, I want to give that disclaimer, is that real estate is regional. It's about geographics, about neighborhoods. So there's some neighborhoods that there's not enough inventory, and if you put your house on the market, it's going to be gone like this. People are probably saying, hey, I want to buy it the first day you put it on. And there are other neighborhoods that, regardless of what time of year it is going to take a long time to sell because maybe there's too much inventory, or maybe that area is a rural area and it's a very specific or niche buyer who wants to get it. And so do not take what I'm saying to mean fact across the board. Real estate is very local, and you should always get a real estate professional to help you figure out kind of what the dynamics are of your market. I am talking at a very high level because I'm talking to people all across the United States, is that I am just seeing longer days on market. And so you need to keep that in mind. The last thing I'm going to say is I always look at what the market is doing to help me base my decision on not if we're in a recession or not, but what I should be doing as a homeowner, as a real estate investor, as somebody who may be facing foreclosure. What should I be doing, and what is the market saying? And what we see is that the Fed future rate suggests that investors are expecting at least 3 rate cuts by the end of the year, according to the CME Fed Watch tool. And so investors, Wall Street, they're expecting about 3 rate cuts. Now, we don't know if these rate cuts are going to be 25 basis points or 50 basis points or whatever else may be the case, or even a full point, but they're expecting that rates are going to drop. If I was a betting man, I also do expect that rates will drop before the end of the year, especially based on what Fed Chair Mr. Powell recently said at Jackson Hole about what's going on in the market. And, he thinks that it's time to make some corrections. So I think that is code or speak for rates will be dropping. If I had to guess, I think that we'll probably get a 0.25% point drop before the election. And then the Fed, after whoever is elected, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, then the Fed will do whatever additional cuts they want to do before the end of the year because they don't want to be seen as influencing the outcome of the election. All right. And so those are my thoughts about where we are. I'm sorry that my answer is not conclusive, but my answer still remains the same. It's up to what you think. If you feel like we're in a recession and you feel like there are economic pressures headed against you, and then we are. And so the next question I have for you is, what do you do about it? What are you doing about this current environment? And I want to really talk through a couple of different action items I want you to take today. I don't want you to wait till tomorrow. I don't want you to wait till next week. I want you to take them today. I want you to begin to think about these things because they're so important to your financial future, the future of you keeping your house, and the future that you want to have. Because, chance always favors the prepared. And you have an opportunity to be prepared by listening to stuff like this podcast, by taking the actions we are telling you to take, and just by really thinking through your situation holistically and getting the help you need. Again, if you are facing foreclosure, there's always help out there for you. That help is free. And in addition to that, you need to take action. You can't just sit with your head in the sand and think that it's going to go away. It does not go away. The banks are coming. I'm telling you, they are my clients. I'm working numerous files right now, and they're just saying, all right, they're not communicating. Continue with foreclosure. Keep moving forward. Don't stop. Send the demand letter. Start the suit. Things like that. And you may say, well, my state has 2-3 years, if you're in New York or New Jersey or Hawaii or something like that. Yeah, but guess what? It's going to be 2026, and that lender is not going to be as receptive to giving you a modification, right? They've been waiting 2 years to get the house, and that house probably is going to continue to appreciate in value and things like that, and they're going to say it's going to sell. And if you don't have that full reinstatement amount, or you don't have that full payoff amount if the loan's matured, guess what? They're not going to work with you. They're going to say bye-bye and take the house. All right. So keep that in mind. And so what things can you be doing right now to be action oriented? One is get prepared. All right. Get prepared. Assume the worst, right? Assume the worst. So what does the worst case scenario look like? We're in a recession, and it's going to be a long recession. What does that mean for you, right? Are you positioned well for the recession? I need you to assess your situation and be very critical. Are you spending too much money? Do you have enough reserves? Is your job situation stable? Is your portfolio performing the way it should be? Do you have sources of money that you can tap before you lose your home? I'm talking 401k. I'm talking about brokerage accounts. I'm talking about bank accounts. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about family. I'm talking about inheritances. Whatever may be the case, churches, whatever may be the case. You need to make an assessment of this and start looking into those programs now. Are there federal programs available for you in your state that can help you get through this storm? Think through those things now. Do not wait. You may say, oh, DJ, things are great for you. Like, you don't have to worry about some of these things. You don't understand my pressures. And again, I don't understand everybody's situation, but I'll tell you, I'm doing the same thing in my situation. I am taking inventory of what we have going on and making decisions. I, like many folks, I got student loan debt. I got a mortgage. I have financial pressures against me. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a business, right? And so my business, it doesn't wait for me. I don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks just because I wake up and say, hey, paycheck fall from the sky. I have to go out there and get it every day in order to pay my bills. And so I feel you. And so one of the things I looked at in my own financial life, I said, all right, where are we right now, right? And what I realized is that me and my wife, we didn't really have enough liquidity, in my opinion. And so what I'm doing right now is saying, all right, cool. I need to build more liquidity because I need to be able to weather whatever storm may come, whatever recession may or may not happen. I need to be in a financial position that I can service all my debts, that I can pay all my debts. If the business stops generating revenue for 6-12 months, what am I going to do? And so I have to take inventory of my own situation. And now I'm working very hard to help build that liquidity so that if something does happen in our economy, although I'll be impacted, I'm not devastated. I'm not destroyed. And so I want you to take those same steps to say, if something does go awry in our economy, if we get another COVID type situation and things go belly up, what am I doing? What are we doing to take the next and right steps in order to prevent ourselves from being in a situation where we are destitute and dependent on a government handout that may or may not come. All right. And so those are all the things that I'm doing. Those are all things I want you to do. And I just want you to be prepared. At the end of the day, recessions are tough. Our economy right now is in a really critical spot, and election pressures are on everybody because you hear ads and you see what each candidate is proposing, and everybody is looking at what's going to benefit them, and what candidate is speaking the right words to them and telling them what they want to hear right now. And so ultimately, I want you to be focused, not on what candidate is coming down the pipeline, not on what Chairman Powell is saying about if we're in a recession or not, or what economists and pundits are saying. I want you to be focused on what you can be doing, because that's what you can control. You can control what you can do in this environment to change your financial situation, to keep your house, to keep your family in the house that they love and that they want to be in. All right. And so that is our podcast today. I am so excited because guess what? It is my favorite part of the podcast. It's our bow tie round. And the bow tie round is where you, our listeners, get to tie one on with your host, DJ Elojo. B is my best advice. The O is the one thing I'm grateful for. And the W is my wildest or most interesting foreclosure related story. My best advice for you is to check on someone you love today. All right. Check on someone you love today, whether it's a friend, a family member, somebody who you've been meaning to call. Check on them. I give you this as my best advice because literally just a couple days ago, I got a call from someone, and it was a police officer. And actually, it was a sheriff. And they were saying, hey, I'm calling because we are coming to do a welfare check on this property because the resident at this property is not responsive. Her brother reached out to us and wanted us to come do a welfare check. They couldn't get into the property, and so they asked me to come out to the property to come unlock the door. And so I said, hey, no problem. I would definitely come out to the property. I was there probably about 45 minutes to an hour after they had called me. And the sheriff and the brother entered the property, and guess what? The lady was there. She was inside the residence, but she was unconscious. And we called an ambulance. They rushed her to the hospital, and that brother saved her life because she was actually in a situation where she had to have immediate surgery. And so I just want you to go check on somebody who you love today, just because you just never know. You may be the person that saves their life with that phone call, with that positive message. It can lift their spirits, or in the event like this just happened, you could be the person who literally saves their life. All right. So that's my best advice for you today. The one thing I'm grateful for all my friends and all my loved ones. I'm grateful just to be surrounded by people who I love dearly and who love me back, and with no pretense. And so that is just the greatest thing to have, is love in your life. My interesting or wildest, craziest, most bestest, whatever word I want to use today, foreclosure story just comes from a great resolution to a file that I probably talked about before. But basically there was a file. This borrower was not communicating. It took over 2.5 years, and the lender was just filing foreclosure actions and taking it all the way to sale. The sale date was scheduled for September, I think 9th or so. So it was going to be coming up soon. But guess what? They were able to sell their house, pay off the loan, and walk away with a nice, handsome profit. And so it was a win-win-win for the lender, for the homeowner, and for the new buyer of the house. Those are the resolutions we love to see. And that is why we created this Foreclosure Fix platform, because we want you all to be in a position where you can profit from your home. If you have to sell it, let's profit. If you're not going to sell it, let's take the steps you need to take in order to keep your home, whether that's bankruptcy, a modification, figuring it out, reinstating, doing something to get you in a better spot financially. As always, I appreciate you for tuning in. If you like the content you're hearing, do me a favor, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, let us know what you want to hear about. I am fired up today. I'm fired up to be talking to this great community, the Foreclosure Fix family. Thank you for being a part of that tribe. And as always, I love you. God bless you, and I will see you soon. The views and opinions on this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. If you have a specific legal question, we highly recommend you contact a qualified legal professional.